he must take to the water to navigate through the drifting maze of ice. Bears are excellent swimmers, but he's no match for a seal. As the ice melts, finding seals gets harder, and with more open water, it's easier for a seal to escape. The melt has caused a shift in power. Now it's advantage seal. The bear's chance has slipped away, and his hunger grows. The ice barrier broken, strange marine visitors begin to arrive.
Oh, Jay, you're a fucking absolute cock.
They've swum 1,000 kilometers to get here, and with the ice gone, they can make their way into the shallows of freshwater estuaries. Beluga whales. As more and more belugas arrive, a strange annual ritual begins. For belugas, this is a very special event. The violent thrashing against the riverbed loosens their year-old skin and rids them of unwelcome parasites they may have picked up on their journey. In fresh water, warmed by the strengthening sun, and with the smooth pebbles in the shallows to rub against, the whales whistle with pleasure. But the ice-free summer will be short. The whales can only enjoy their Arctic spa for 2 weeks. Soon, the belugas must leave the shallows and make the most of what's left of the summer to hunt the shoals of Arctic fish. It's early July, and at the bird cliff, the fox has caught a nesting fulmar. She has a family now, 8 tiny mouths to feed, and one bird is not enough to go round. The cubs bicker over their dinner. They're only 3 weeks old, and in just another 2 weeks, they'll have to be ready to fend for themselves.
I don't know what sound I want, Dad. What sound shall I have? What sound shall I have?
Will be so harsh that only 2 of these 8 cubs are likely to
Do I have the V8
gain
14 litres, or do I have
Their lives
the
depend on every mouth.
costing 1,200 litres?
When food is scarce, the most dominant cub will feed, and the smallest will go hungry.
Mascagna.
The seabirds have been working round the clock to keep their chicks fed and to prepare them for the first big challenge of their lives. If they're to escape the winter, they'll have to leave the cliffs right away and get far out to sea. But it's only been 20 days since they hatched, and their wings are still too weak for them to fly. So far, their feet have
Full
never
court
left the
press in
ground,
effect with
and there's
ship.
only one
Start
way
travel.
down to the safety of the sea. 300 meters below.
Turn left. At the roundabout, take the second exit.
Reluctantly, the chicks take a few nervous steps.
Exit you. Continue straight.
By a gentle nudge. Leaps into the unknown. Dad follows right behind them, reassuringly calling to his chick. Made it. The landings may not be stylish, but at least they're on target.
Continue straight.
It's easy to misjudge the distance, and some fall short of the water. But even now, Dad sticks close by. He encourages his chick to take the last few steps towards the safety of the waves. But some chicks land a long way from the water. They're sturdy enough to survive the fall, but this is no place to be left alone. For the mother fox, it's easy pickings. With so many free meals falling from the sky, she runs from one kill to the next. The chicks will be jumping for only 3 days, so she must make the most of this moment. The survival of her own family depends on it. What her family can't eat now, she buries. For the days ahead, she'll have a well-stocked larder, enough for all 8 of her cubs. Their bellies now full at last, the cubs can relax in the sun. For the Guillemot chicks that survive, the ordeal has only just begun. They must retreat south 1,000 kilometers beyond the reach of winter. But the youngsters can't fly yet, their wings aren't strong enough. So, led by their parents, they'll have to swim.
Continue straight.
At the height of summer, even
At the roundabout,
permanent
take the
ice
second exit.
are touched.
Exit your...
Meltwater, channeled down from high on these ice caps, pours over a precipice where the ice meets the ocean. Along this 300-kilometer wall of ice,
Continue
a
straight.
freshwater cascades plummet into the sea. As July draws on, great melt reaches its peak. The greatest seasonal change on the planet has taken place. The sea ice that once extended all the way to the horizon is now open ocean. In just 3 months, the sun has won its battle with the ice. Over 7 million square kilometers of ice has melted away, uncovering thousands of islands surrounded by open ocean. But in recent years, the scale of this melt has been growing. And for one animal, this is a critical issue. A mother bear and her adolescent cub rest on a fragment of sea ice.
Continue
With
straight.
the melt, they're forced to swim ever greater distances to hunt for seals. Their Arctic home is increasingly vulnerable to a changing climate, and this year there has been even less ice than normal. If future melts are as extreme as this one, bears like these may starve or drown, lost at sea. This is one of the last pieces of ice now adrift in the open ocean. The polar bear's icy world has melted away. For many others, the open water provides the greatest feast of the year. The narwhal have made it through the ice. They gather in bays where they can hunt for Arctic cod and squid. Here they are joined by other ocean animals.
Continue straight.
Bowhead whales. These 100-ton giants feed on millions of tiny plankton that flourish in the sunlit waters. Belugas have come for the rich fishing and rest on the surface between dives. Even on the seabed, there is plenty on the menu. Two tons of pulsating blubber, forages for clams in the sediment. Walrus are year-round residents of the Arctic, following the ebb and flow of the ice. In the open summer waters, they can reach huge areas of the ocean floor, rich feeding grounds for these giant seals. They hoover up clams with their rubbery lips. A single walrus can eat up to 4,000 clams in one 10-minute dive. Bellies full, they come up for air. With the sea ice gone, the walrus haul out on dry land to rest. They're used to huddling together to keep warm, and even now that it's 12 degrees above freezing, they prefer to stick close together. In the warmth of the sun, the walrus begin to shed their old skin, and they spend hours scratching. Some places are harder to reach than others. These irritations make them bad-tempered, and arguments often break out. Spitting, stabbing, and bellowing iron out any disagreements. All disputes settled, a peace of sorts returns once more. Digesting a belly full of clams generates a lot of wind, making walrus colonies very fragrant places. Fed by the abundant supply of guillemot chicks, all 8 fox cubs seem to have boundless energy. Soon they will be ready to face the world without their mother. In just 5 weeks, she's raised her cubs, making the most of the short summer. The mother fox has won her race against time. Between June and July, the Arctic is the land of the midnight sun. An empty wilderness has been transformed.
I don't even know that. Wherever Nami, or wherever the fuck that is, coming down through Norway.
The once frozen ocean is now bursting with life as all the animals enjoy the summer feast.
Okay, that's...
But polar bears aren't so fortunate. With no sea ice to hunt on, they're now trapped on dry land. A hungry bear will eat any food it can get its paws on, but for a meat eater, a few scraps of dry lichen won't go far. It may have been 4 months since his last kill, and he won't find any seals here. If the yearly increase in the scale of the melt continues, more bears will starve. 2/3 of the world's polar bears could vanish by 2050. The great melt has always been difficult for bears, but soon surviving the summer may become impossible. The scale of the summer melt has changed over the last 30 years. 2007's melt broke all records. 1 million extra square kilometers of ice has disappeared, the greatest melt ever recorded. The latest predictions suggest that the Arctic may be entirely ice-free in summertime within 20 to 40 years. By September, the sun's power begins to ebb. The summer comes to an end, and the Arctic empties of life. The last seabirds begin their long journey south, leaving only a few hardy residents behind. The fox cubs now face the changing season alone. Already the first snow is beginning to fall. The full Arctic winter is just 6 weeks away. For hungry bears, 6 weeks may be too long to wait. The sea ice will not freeze properly till it reaches -2 degrees. For now, it's still too warm. This ice is no use to the bears. They can't walk on it to hunt. The normally unsocial bears gather in groups, trapped on the shoreline. This is the time of year the male bears spar. Only the biggest bears have the energy reserves to fight. After a summer without food, the bear systems are in low gear. These aerobics help warm them up in readiness for the winter hunting ahead. It's late October, but still the sea hasn't frozen. For every degree rise in the average temperature, the summer melt is extended by a whole week. That's more bad news for polar bears. Smaller, younger bears don't have the energy of the big males. Each day they are without food, they lose nearly a kilo. Some have lost half of their body weight. These hungry bears must now rest in the snow and conserve energy. All they can do is wait. At last, the wind changes, blowing from the cold north across the sea. The air temperature plummets to 20 degrees below. It's now cold enough for ice crystals to form in the ocean. They knit together, forming a greasy layer of surface ice. This thickens into plates, which bump and collide in the swell, forming pancake ice. These pancakes lock together to form a continuous surface. At long last, the sea has frozen. Only now can the bears head out onto the sea ice to hunt for seals. But the new ice has a surprise in store. This season, for the first time ever recorded, even the winter ice is thinner. The ice here is too thin to climb out on, and he struggles to free himself. At last, safely on the firmer ice, he rolls in the snow to dry his fur. In November, the sun sets over the frozen north. It will not appear again for 4 months. The summer melt provides opportunities for millions of animals, but has now become a threat to the polar bear's very survival. This season, the bear has survived the greatest melt yet recorded, and made it through to the Arctic winter. The power of the sun drives the seasons, transforming our planet. Vast movements of ocean and air currents bring dramatic change throughout the year. And in a few special places, these seasonal changes create some of the greatest wildlife spectacles on Earth. Here on the western coast of North America, in the spring of each year, one of the Earth's greatest travelers comes home. Over 500 million salmon leave the Pacific Ocean on a 5,000-kilometer journey, returning to spawn in the rivers where they were born. travelling deep into the continent, these fish will not only provide food for millions of animals, they will also bring life to one of the richest habitats on Earth. The coast of British Columbia and Alaska is rimmed by spectacular mountains. Although it will be months before the salmon enter the rivers below these frozen peaks, one species that has spent the winter sleeping up here is already anticipating their return. In January, snug in their dens, the females have given birth, and now the family is beginning to stir. Grizzly bears. Whether the cubs will live or die depends largely on one key event, the salmon run. For the next 5 months, the bears will be focused on making their appointment with the returning salmon. Surviving the first year is hard. Half of all grizzly cubs don't make it. Throughout Alaska and British Columbia, thousands of bear families are emerging from their winter sleep. There is nothing to eat up here, but the conditions were ideal for hibernation. Lots of snow in which to dig a den. To find food, mothers must lead their cubs down to the coast, where the snow will already be melting. But getting down can be a challenge for small cubs. These mountains are dangerous places, but ultimately the fate of these bear families, and indeed that of all bears around the North Pacific, depends on the salmon. And right now, those salmon are more than 3,000 kilometers away. After 4 years at sea, 500 million Pacific salmon are going home, back to fresh water, to lay their eggs in the rivers where they themselves were hatched. How the salmon managed to find their way back home across the open ocean is still largely a mystery. It has only recently been discovered that a salmon's brain contains small particles of iron that, like a compass, help it steer the magnetic lines of the Earth, showing them exactly where to go. For many of these salmon, that destination is here along the western coast of North America in British Columbia. They're making their way back to their birthplace in one of its many freshwater rivers and streams. Here, amongst the network of lakes and waterways, lies the largest expanse of temperate rainforest left in the world. It stretches from southern British Columbia to Alaska. It's one of the most fertile landscapes on the planet. The temperate rainforest supports even more life than its tropical counterpart. For thousands of years, salmon have returned to this country because of the abundance of one element: fresh water.
So
This is some of the purest water in the world, thanks to these forests. Where the forests are still undisturbed, the soil, held by millions of tree roots, filters the water, keeping the rivers flowing clean and pure. In May, grizzly bears come down to the coast to find something to eat while they await the arrival of the salmon. This is where spring arrives first. The cubs, still feeding on nothing but their mother's milk, have grown considerably. But it has been 6 months since their mother had anything to eat. Now they need other food, and the search for it can lead them into danger. Some males will try to kill cubs. The breeding season has begun, and big males are here looking for females. But at least there's something to eat here, even if it's only grass and sedges. These greens, in fact, can keep them going for months, but they will need something more nutritious if they're to put on enough fat to enable them to survive the next winter. In some places along the coast, bears find much richer food. It's buried, but bears have an extremely acute sense of smell and can sniff out a meal even if it's beneath the wet sand. Clams. It's not only bears that are drawn to the coast in search of food. There are more than 2,000 grey wolves in the Great Forest. They leave their cubs in the tidal areas while they hunt. This wolf is the pup's eldest brother. He's babysitting while the adults are away hunting. He doesn't have any food for the cubs, so they eat whatever they can find, even chewing the barnacles off the rocks. They, like the bears, are awaiting the arrival of the salmon. The adults return and find an intruder. A hungry bear has wandered into their patch. Coastal wolves will often kill and eat small bears. But this bear is very big. Eventually, they decide that this one is just too big. By July, the bears are all getting very hungry indeed. And still the salmon are not here. And then, after 2 months of travelling across the open ocean, the salmon reach the coast. As they near the shore, they begin to smell fresh water. There are thousands of rivers flowing into the sea, and the salmon have to find the particular one that will lead them to their birthplace. They have a truly extraordinary sense of smell. They can distinguish a single drop from their home river amongst 8 million litres of seawater. As they detect the waters of home, they converge into the narrow fjords, which act as underwater corridors. But other creatures also know these corridors. Killer whales. They eat a lot of salmon. And so do Stella's sea lions. Salmon sharks are here too, specifically to feed on salmon. But there is one predator that they can never see coming. The bald-headed eagle. Once past these coastal predators, there is little to prevent them from reaching their home river. It's now late July, and the salmon are poised at the edge of their inland realm. In the estuaries of the larger rivers, all 5 species of Pacific salmon mingle together: pink, chum, coho, sockeye, and chinook. The drive to get into the rivers is strong. Their eggs will only survive in fresh water. In late July, however, the water level is often too low for the first salmon to enter the smaller rivers. That doesn't stop them trying. But the very water that has drawn them back home will eventually kill them. As their kidneys and other organs adjust to the sudden lack of salt water, they stop eating and even drinking. So the energy stored in their bodies is all they have to power their swim upriver and storm. However, the salmon in the smaller streams have a more immediate problem. The low water has stopped them before their journey upstream can even begin. Their coast every year is swept by great storms. In the skies above the North Pacific, a huge eddy is forming. It moves towards the coast and the high coastal mountains. Clouds are driven up and over this massive barrier, and they drop their load of water. The Great Forest gets up to 3 meters of rainfall a year. Bears have thick coats, and the heavy rain doesn't seem to bother them at all. The steep Rocky Mountains funnel the rainwater into the rivers, and levels quickly rise. This is what the salmon have been waiting for. The first wave of travellers advance upstream. No sooner do they start than they're faced with another challenge. But 6 million years of evolution have prepared the salmon well. Their bodies are solid muscle and perfectly streamlined. Clearing these falls for a salmon is like a human being jumping over a 4-story building. In many of these falls, however, the salmon face more than just water. The bears know that this is where they can get the first proper meal of the season. But it's not easy. There is an art to catching a leaping salmon. And this young bear hasn't yet acquired it. This is what salmon were born to do. They're driven to get up these rivers to their spawning grounds. Their parents made it up here, and nothing short of death will stop them from repeating that journey. They're trying to get to the exact stretch of gravel where they hatched. Some lucky ones may only have to go a few kilometers inland, but others are faced with a truly daunting journey. The farthest that salmon have been known to swim upriver is 3,000 kilometers. Summer rains can be short, and when they stop, the water levels in many of the rivers along the coast drop quickly. The first salmon in the rivers are once again trapped by shallow water, and worse, they're in bear country now. In early August, mother bears begin to patrol the rivers looking for fish. Like this one, they're usually skinny and starving. She and her cubs have eaten nothing but plants since they emerged from their den. They're in desperate need of a proper meal. Bears of all ages and experience come to the rivers to look for salmon. The first fish of the season, however, are hard to catch. This young bear is still learning how to do it. Step number 1 is spotting a salmon. A higher perspective usually helps. In these early days, fish are few and far between. And when they do appear, they're moving very fast. The salmon also have lots of places to hide. The rivers are only shallow in short stretches, and they can quickly shoot across them and escape into the deep pools. This mother and her cubs are going to have to wait a little longer for the conditions to change before they can get the meals they so badly need. But for the salmon, these deep water refuges are becoming prisons. It may be weeks before it rains again and they can move on. Their bodies are now beginning to change. As their sex hormones stimulate the production of eggs and sperm, their skin changes colour. Some develop a humped back and a hooked nose. All these changes use up precious energy. The longer the fish wait in these pools, the less likely they will be able to complete the journey to their spawning grounds. The mother bear and her cubs, finding little in the shallows, now try their luck in the deeper salmon-filled pools. The salmon are easy enough to see. With so many fish here, this young bear should surely be able to catch something. But finding the salmon is only part of the problem. Bears must pin a salmon to the stream bed in order to catch it. Not easy in deep water. Older bears know that it's almost impossible to get a meal this way. But while the salmon here may be relatively safe from the bears, they're not out of danger. The late summer sun is warming the water so that levels are dropping and the amount of dissolved oxygen is decreasing. The time spent in these worsening conditions is beginning to show. The experienced bears show the youngsters what to do. Catching live salmon in these pools may be difficult, but there are dead ones for the taking if only the bears can reach them. The problem is that most bears don't like to get their ears wet. However, the old bears know a trick or two. It just needs a little fancy footwork. This year, the water levels are particularly low, and by September, the salmon are in real trouble. In the confined, oxygen-poor water, there is an increased risk of parasites and infections. In some years, these conditions can get so bad that most of the salmon die before they even reach the spawning grounds. What they need is more rain, and soon. Luckily, this year, the autumn rains arrive on time. The salmon can set off once again. However, so much rain brings different challenges. fish now have to battle against powerful torrents. But the salmon know how to turn this swift, turbulent water to their own advantage. Scarcely beating their tails, they manage to propel themselves forward by using the energy of the water, much as a sailboat does when tacking into the wind. But that doesn't mean there will be no further problem in reaching the spawning grounds. This is going to be the end of the road for a lot of salmon. These bears are really hungry. They haven't tasted salmon for 10 months, and the big males battle for the best fishing spots. The longer the salmon take over their journey upstream, the weaker they become. And these falls present them with their biggest challenge yet. Although the falls aren't very tall, the bears hold the high ground. The salmon make short exploratory leaps to see where the bears are. But they don't always get it right. This mother bear has been waiting months for this moment. Competition is fierce for these first salmon, even between a mother and her own cubs. More and more fish arrive at the foot of the falls.
Who's all Stephen? Hmm. Nie wiem, czy źle powiedzieć, just... Hmm. Hmm. Fucking loads, Dad. Loads. Oh, fucking hell. What is the time? Oh, 2 o'clock. Yeah, it is. Fucking hell. I think I'm gonna pull over and get settled. Think I'm gonna pull over and get settled, Dad. Mm-hmm. Alright, Dad. Yeah. Alright, Dad. Love you. Love you night, Dad.